My sister, the bank manager, humiliated me in front of everyone just because I asked to withdraw $100. She sneered, "We don't serve beggars here." Minutes later, I requested $3.5 billion. The entire bank froze, and she dropped to her knees, begging. Standing outside First National Bank, I clutched the small withdrawal slip in my trembling hand. The towering glass building stretched toward the Seattle sky, its pristine facade reflecting my uncertain face back at me. Inside those walls worked Amanda Thompson, my little sister, the bank manager who'd clawed her way up from teller to executive in just 5 years. The same Amanda who used to curl up next to me during thunderstorms, who'd beg me to read her bedtime stories when our parents worked late shifts at the factory. But that was before success changed her. Before the corner office, the designer suits, and the cold distance that had grown between us like frost on a window. I adjusted my simple gray sweater, clean but clearly from a discount store, and took a deep breath. The expensive smartphone in my back pocket felt heavy, its weight a secret I'd carried for 3 years. To everyone who knew me, including Amanda, I was Jessica Thompson, the struggling artist, the family disappointment, the one who'd never made anything of herself. They had no idea about the anonymous art sales that had quietly built an empire. No idea about the cryptocurrency investments that had exploded beyond my wildest dreams. No idea that the woman they pitied actually owned more wealth than they could fathom. As I pushed through the revolving glass doors, the bank's marble lobby enveloped me in artificial coolness. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across the polished floors, while the soft murmur of important conversations filled the air. This was Amanda's kingdom, where she ruled with efficiency and an iron fist wrapped in a Hermes glove. "Next," called a teller from behind bulletproof glass, but I wasn't heading to the regular customer service area. I had to see Amanda directly. She'd specifically requested that I come to her whenever I needed anything banking-related, claiming it was family taking care of family. I should have known better. The elevator whisked me to the 3rd floor, where Amanda's nameplate gleamed on a frosted glass door. Amanda Thompson, Regional Manager. Through the transparent walls, I could see her on a phone call, gesturing animatedly with one manicured hand while the other held what looked like financial reports. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon, and her navy suit probably cost more than I supposedly made in a month. When she noticed me through the glass, her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. The warm smile she'd been wearing during her phone conversation cooled to something more professional, more distant. She held up one finger, "Wait!" and continued her call for another 5 minutes while I stood there like a supplicant seeking an audience with royalty. "I'll have to call you back, Richard," she finally said into her headset, never taking her eyes off me. "My sister needs something." The way she emphasized sister made it sound like a burden, an obligation she'd rather avoid. "Jessica," she said, standing to give me a brief, perfunctory hug that barely qualified as physical contact. "What brings you here? Please tell me you're not having money troubles again." The assumption stung, even though it was exactly the image I'd cultivated. "I just need to make a withdrawal from my checking account. Nothing major." Amanda's eyebrows rose slightly. "Couldn't you use an ATM? Or the mobile app?" Her tone suggested I was wasting her valuable time on something trivial. "The ATM has a daily limit and I need exactly $100 for supplies." I kept my voice steady, refusing to let her condescension affect me. "Art supplies," I added, knowing she'd roll her eyes. And she did. "Right. Your art career." She made air quotes, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. "Well, I suppose I can help you out. Though honestly, Jess, at 32, don't you think it's time to get serious about your future? Mom and Dad are worried sick about you." The familiar lecture began as she led me back toward the main banking floor. How I was wasting my potential. How my college degree was going unused. How embarrassing it was to explain to her colleagues and friends that her older sister was still finding herself through painting. "I mean, look at you," she continued, gesturing at my simple clothes and worn sneakers. When was the last time you bought something nice for yourself? When was the last time you went on a real vacation or ate at a restaurant that wasn't fast food?" Each question was a tiny cut designed to remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. Amanda was the success story, the one who'd made something of herself, who drove a BMW and lived in a downtown penthouse. I was the cautionary tale, the reminder of what happened when you chased dreams instead of dollars. We reached the customer service desk, where several tellers were helping other clients. Amanda walked past them all to the VIP section, clearly intending to handle this herself. The area was more private, with comfortable chairs and a polished desk that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Ninette," Amanda called to a young teller nearby, "can you pull up Jessica Thompson's account information? She needs to make a withdrawal." The teller, a nervous-looking woman in her early 20s, quickly accessed my information. I watched her face change as she read whatever appeared on her screen. Her expression grew confused, then concerned. "Ms. Thompson," she said quietly to Amanda, "there seems to be some kind of error in the system. The account balance shows—" "What kind of error?" Amanda interrupted, moving to look at the screen herself. Her face went through the same progression of emotions, confusion, then something that looked almost like fear. "The system must be glitching," Amanda said firmly, though her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "Just process the withdrawal for $100 from the checking account." But I could see the doubt creeping in. The way she kept glancing back at the screen, the way her fingers drummed nervously against the polished desk surface. That's when I noticed we were attracting attention. Other customers in the VIP area had begun to whisper among themselves, and I caught snippets of their conversations. Phrases like "Thompson account" and "system error" floated through the air. Amanda's face was growing red, whether from embarrassment or frustration, I couldn't tell. "Is there a problem with processing my withdrawal?" I asked innocently, though I could feel the tension building like pressure in a tea kettle. "No problem," Amanda said through gritted teeth. "Just some technical difficulties. Ninette, override the system and process the withdrawal manually." The young teller looked uncertain. "I'm not authorized to override system warnings, Ms. Thompson. Maybe we should call IT?" "I said process the withdrawal," Amanda snapped, her professional mask finally beginning to slip. "It's $100 for crying out loud." That's when David Miller, the bank's head of security, approached our little group. He was a tall, imposing man with kind eyes and graying temples, someone who'd always been professional and courteous during my previous visits. "Is everything all right here, Ms. Thompson?" he asked Amanda, though his eyes flicked toward me with something that might have been recognition. "Everything's fine, David. Just a small system glitch. Nothing to worry about." But David's expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. He moved closer to the computer screen, and I watched his eyebrows climb toward his hairline as he read whatever information was displayed there. The whispers in the VIP area were growing louder now. I could feel eyes on me, curious, speculative eyes that were trying to piece together why a simple withdrawal was causing such a commotion. "Amanda," I said quietly, "maybe we should handle this privately in your office." "There's nothing to handle privately," she replied sharply, her voice carrying across the marble lobby. "You want $100, you'll get $100. Ninette, I don't care what the screen says. Process the withdrawal now." The teller's hands were shaking as she began typing, but before she could complete the transaction, her supervisor appeared. He was an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes, someone I'd never seen before. "Ms. Thompson," he said to Amanda, "I need to speak with you immediately. There's been a flagging in our system that requires your attention." Amanda's face was now bright red. "Not now, Harold. I'm helping my sister with a simple withdrawal." "Ma'am," Harold said firmly, "this can't wait. The account in question has triggered multiple security protocols." The entire VIP area had gone quiet now. Even the customers at the regular teller windows had turned to watch our drama unfold. I stood there in my discount store clothes and worn sneakers, feeling the weight of a dozen stares, while Amanda's carefully constructed professional image began to crumble around her. "Jessica," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "what exactly have you been doing? What kind of account are you trying to access?" "Just my regular checking account," I replied truthfully. "The same one I've had for 10 years. "Then why," she hissed, "is the system showing—" She stopped herself, glancing around at the growing audience of customers and employees who were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Harold cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should move this to a private office." "No," Amanda said, her pride refusing to let her back down now. "My sister wants $100, and that's what she's going to get. I don't care if the system thinks she's the Queen of England." The comparison was so ironic, I almost laughed. If only she knew how close to the truth she was. That's when she made her fatal mistake. "Look, Jess," Amanda said, raising her voice so everyone in the lobby could hear clearly. "I know money's tight for you. I know you're struggling with your little art hobby. But this is a bank, not a charity. We have procedures here." The condescension in her voice was thick enough to cut with a knife. Several customers exchanged glances, and I could see pity in their eyes. Pity for the poor woman being lectured by her successful sister. "If you need financial help," Amanda continued, "there are programs for people in your situation, social services, food banks, that sort of thing. But you can't just walk into a major financial institution dressed like—" She gestured at my appearance. "Well, like that, and expect us to bend over backwards." The lobby was completely silent now. Even the soft background music seemed to have stopped. Harold looked mortified. David appeared uncomfortable, and poor Nanette looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. "Amanda," I said quietly, giving her one last chance to stop before she went too far. But she was on a roll now, her pent-up embarrassment and frustration at having her struggling sister disrupting her perfect workplace finally boiling over. "I mean, seriously, when was the last time you had a real job? When was the last time you contributed anything meaningful to society?" "You're 32 years old, Jessica." 32? And you're still asking your little sister for help with basic things like withdrawing $100. The words hit like physical blows, each one carefully designed to maximize damage. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the lobby, could hear the sharp intake of breath from the customers who were witnessing this very public family humiliation. "You know what?" Amanda said, her voice rising to a pitch that carried clearly across the marble space. "I'm tired of enabling this behavior. I'm tired of pretending that your artistic dreams are anything more than an excuse to avoid adult responsibilities." She turned to address the entire lobby now, as if she were making some kind of public service announcement. "This is what happens when you don't take life seriously, everyone. This is what happens when you waste your education, when you refuse to grow up, when you think the world owes you something just for existing." Harold tried to interrupt. "Ms. Thompson, perhaps—" "No," Amanda cut him off. "I think everyone here should understand exactly what kind of situation we're dealing with. My sister thinks she can just walk into First National Bank, dressed like she just rolled out of bed, and demand money from an account that's clearly having system issues." She looked directly at me, her eyes cold and calculating. "Well, let me tell you something, Jessica. And let me tell everyone else here, too. We don't serve beggars in this establishment. This is a professional financial institution, not some corner check-cashing place. If you want to be treated with respect, you need to earn that respect." The words hung in the air like poison gas. The entire lobby was frozen in shock at the brutality of what they'd just witnessed. A bank manager publicly humiliating her own sister, calling her a beggar in front of dozens of witnesses. I felt something inside me break, not with sadness, but with a cold, crystalline clarity. This was it. This was the moment when any lingering loyalty I felt toward my family finally died. The sister who used to hold my hand during scary movies had just destroyed me in the most public way possible. The little girl who used to look up to me had just ground my dignity into the polished marble floor of her precious bank. And she had no idea, absolutely no idea, what she had just unleashed. I reached slowly into my back pocket and pulled out my phone. The expensive smartphone that Amanda had always assumed was just another symbol of my poor financial priorities, buying a device I couldn't afford instead of saving money like a responsible adult. The screen lit up, displaying my banking app. My real banking app. The one connected to accounts that Amanda didn't know existed. Accounts that held the fruits of 3 years of anonymous art sales to private collectors around the world. Accounts that had been quietly accumulating wealth while I played the role of the struggling family failure. "You're absolutely right, Amanda," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent lobby. "This is a professional financial institution, and I think it's time I started treating it like one." I looked up from my phone to meet her eyes, and something in my expression must have warned her that the dynamic was about to shift dramatically. "I'd like to make a withdrawal," I said calmly. "Fine," she snapped, clearly thinking she'd won some kind of victory with her public humiliation. $100. There, was that so hard? "No," I said, my voice steady as granite. "Not $100. The silence in the lobby grew even deeper, if that was possible. I could feel every pair of eyes in the building focused on me, waiting for whatever was about to happen. I looked directly at Amanda, memorizing the smug satisfaction on her face before it inevitably crumbled. "I'd like to withdraw $3.5 billion. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. $3.5 billion. The number was so astronomical that for a moment nobody in the lobby seemed to process what I'd actually said. Amanda's face went through a fascinating series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, then something that looked almost like panic before settling into cold fury. "Very funny, Jessica," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. $3.5 billion. Right. And I suppose you're going to tell us you're secretly Jeff Bezos in disguise? A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd of onlookers, but they died quickly when they saw I wasn't laughing. I stood there in my discount store sweater and worn sneakers, completely calm, completely serious. "I understand your skepticism," I said quietly, "but I'd appreciate it if you could check the account balance before making assumptions." Harold, the supervisor who'd been trying to get Amanda's attention earlier, stepped forward with obvious relief. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. "Ma'am," he said to Amanda, "if we could just verify the account information." "There's nothing to verify," Amanda snapped. "My sister is having some kind of breakdown. $3.5 billion? Do you have any idea how insane that sounds?" But even as she spoke, I could see doubt creeping into her eyes. The same doubt I'd noticed earlier when she'd looked at Ninette's computer screen, the same confusion that had made Harold so insistent about getting her attention. I pulled out my phone again and opened my secure banking app, not the public one Amanda might have glimpsed over the years, but the private wealth management portal that handled my real accounts. The screen showed a clean, professional interface with numbers that would make most people dizzy. "David," I said, addressing the security chief who'd been watching this entire scene unfold with growing concern. "You mentioned earlier that the account had triggered security protocols. What kind of protocols?" David glanced nervously at Amanda, then back at me. "Well, ma'am, accounts with balances over a certain threshold automatically flag for additional verification when large transactions are requested. It's standard procedure for high-net-worth clients." "High-net-worth clients?" Amanda's voice cracked slightly on the words. "Jessica isn't... she can't be..." "Perhaps," I suggested gently, "we should move this conversation somewhere more private? I imagine your other customers would appreciate the discretion." The lobby had indeed become a theater, with dozens of people pretending to conduct their own business while straining to catch every word of our increasingly surreal conversation. Phones were coming out now, and I could see people starting to record. Harold nodded quickly. "Of course. Ms. Thompson, if you and your sister could follow me to the executive conference room?" Amanda looked around the lobby as if seeing it clearly for the first time. The staring faces, the phones pointed in our direction, the whispered conversations that had nothing to do with banking business. Her perfect professional composure was cracking like ice in spring. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, but she followed Harold toward the elevator. The executive conference room was on the top floor, all glass walls and polished mahogany, designed to impress wealthy clients with the bank's success and discretion. Amanda sat across from me at the massive table, her hands folded tightly in her lap, while Harold busied himself with a tablet and David stood quietly by the door. "Now then," Harold said, settling into his chair, Let's get this sorted out properly. Ms. Thompson, Jessica Thompson, you're requesting a withdrawal of $3.5 billion? That's correct. And you believe you have sufficient funds in your account to cover this transaction? I know I do. Amanda made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. This is insane. Harold, you've seen her account. She's my sister. I know exactly what kind of financial situation she's in. Harold's fingers moved across his tablet screen with practiced efficiency. I watched his eyebrows climb steadily higher as he accessed my real account information, the accounts Amanda had never known existed. I'll need to verify some security information, he said, his voice notably more respectful than it had been minutes earlier. Full legal name? Jessica Marie Thompson. Date of birth? March 15th, 1991. And the primary source of the funds in question? Anonymous art sales through Whitmore Galleries in Manhattan, cryptocurrency investments made between 2018 and 2021, and real estate holdings in Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco. Amanda was staring at me like I'd started speaking in tongues. Art sales? What art sales? You paint watercolors of flowers in your studio apartment. I turned to meet her eyes for the first time since we'd entered the conference room. No, Amanda. I let you believe I paint watercolors of flowers in my studio apartment. There's a difference. Harold cleared his throat. Ms. Thompson, I'm going to need to make some calls to verify this information. Transactions of this magnitude require approval from our regional director and compliance department. I understand completely. Take all the time you need. While Harold stepped out to make his calls, the conference room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Amanda sat frozen in her chair, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. David remained by the door, professional but clearly fascinated by the unfolding drama. You're lying, Amanda finally whispered. You have to be lying. I would know if you had. She couldn't even say the word wealthy out loud. Would you? I asked. When was the last time you asked me about my work? Real questions, not dismissive comments about my little art hobby? When was the last time you showed genuine interest in my life? She started, then stopped, because we both knew the answer. She hadn't. None of them had. They'd been so comfortable with the narrative of Jessica the failure that they'd never bothered to look deeper. I've been selling pieces anonymously for 3 years, I continued. High-end collectors, private galleries, international buyers. Turns out there's quite a market for contemporary abstract expressionism when you know how to navigate it properly. But you live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old Honda. You dress like someone who doesn't care about impressing people with material possessions? Yes, I do. Turns out you can be wealthy and still choose to live simply. Revolutionary concept, right? Harold returned 20 minutes later, his tablet in hand and an expression on his face that had shifted from skeptical professionalism to something approaching awe. Ms. Thompson, he said, addressing me directly, I've confirmed your identity and account status with our wealth management division. Your request for a withdrawal of $3.5 billion can be processed, though it will require some time to arrange the transfer of assets from your various investment vehicles. The color drained from Amanda's face so completely that David actually stepped forward, concerned she might faint. That's not possible, she breathed. Harold, you must be making some kind of mistake. I assure you there's no mistake. Ms. Thompson is one of our highest-tier private wealth clients. Her accounts have been managed through our exclusive services division for the past 18 months. Amanda looked at me with something that might have been horror. 18 months? You've been banking here with these kinds of resources for 18 months and you never said anything? Why would I? So you could treat me differently? So you could suddenly become interested in my life now that you know I have money? So you could start being nice to me because of what I'm worth rather than who I am? The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. She slumped back in her chair, finally understanding the full scope of what had just happened in that lobby. She hadn't just humiliated her struggling sister in front of a crowd. She'd publicly degraded one of the bank's most valuable clients. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, what did I do?" Harold was already on his phone, speaking in hushed, urgent tones to what sounded like senior management. I caught phrases like significant client complaint and immediate review required. "Jessica," Amanda said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "No," I agreed. "You didn't know, because you never bothered to find out. You were too busy enjoying your role as the successful sister, too comfortable using me as an example of what happens when people don't follow the traditional path. I was trying to help. I thought you needed guidance, needed someone to push you toward a more stable life." "You called me a beggar, Amanda, in front of dozens of people. You said this bank doesn't serve people like me. You turned my request for a simple $100 withdrawal into a public humiliation because you thought I was beneath your notice." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streaks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word. And more than that, you enjoyed it. You enjoyed putting me in my place, reminding everyone in that lobby of the difference between successful you and failure me." Harold returned to the table, his expression grim. "Ms. Thompson, Jessica, I've been in touch with our regional director. They'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss this incident and ensure that all of your banking needs are being met appropriately going forward." The subtext was clear. They were in damage control mode, terrified that their most valuable client might take her billions elsewhere because of Amanda's public meltdown. "That won't be necessary," I said calmly. "I've already made my decision about my banking arrangements." Amanda's head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'll be transferring my accounts to a different institution, one that treats all customers with respect, regardless of their appearance or perceived social status." "Jessica, no," Amanda said desperately. "Please don't do this. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but don't punish the entire bank for my stupidity." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply choosing to do business with people who share my values. People who understand that dignity isn't determined by the price of your clothes or the balance in your account." Harold looked like he might be sick. "Ms. Thompson, surely we can work something out. Perhaps if we could discuss compensation for the inconvenience." "There's no amount of money that can undo what happened in that lobby. Your manager publicly humiliated a customer based on nothing more than classist assumptions. What does that say about your institution's values?" I stood up, smoothing down my discount store sweater with deliberate care. "I'll give you 24 hours to process my withdrawal request. After that, I'll be closing all of my accounts and moving my assets elsewhere." Amanda shot to her feet. "Jessica, please, I'll lose my job over this. You know I will." "Harold, tell her I'll lose my job." Harold's silence was answer enough. "You should have thought of that before you decided to make an example of me," I said. "Actions have consequences, Amanda, even for bank managers." I walked toward the door, then paused. "You know what the really sad part is? If you'd just treated me like a human being, if you'd shown me the basic courtesy you'd show any customer, none of this would have happened. I would have withdrawn my $100, maybe taken you to lunch, and you never would have known the difference. But instead, you chose to turn it into a performance. You chose to use me as a prop in your demonstration of authority and superiority. So now you get to live with the consequences of that choice." David opened the door for me, his expression carefully neutral. As I stepped into the hallway, I could hear Amanda collapse back into her chair with something between a sob and a moan. The elevator ride down to the lobby felt like descending from one world into another. When the doors opened, I found myself facing the same crowd of customers and employees who'd witnessed my public humiliation an hour earlier. But everything was different now. Harold had clearly made some calls because the staff was looking at me with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed panic. Word had spread through the building like wildfire. The woman in the discount store clothes wasn't what she seemed. I walked through the lobby with my head high, feeling the weight of dozens of stares. But these weren't looks of pity anymore. These were looks of fascination, confusion, and in some cases, something approaching respect. The young teller, Nanette, approached me hesitantly as I neared the main entrance. "Ms. Thompson, I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry about what happened earlier. The way you were treated was completely unacceptable. Thank you, Ninette. I appreciate that. Will you really be closing your accounts? I paused, considering the question. Yes, I will. She nodded sadly. I understand. We lost something important today, didn't we? You lost the chance to show that character matters more than appearances, but it's not too late to learn from this experience. As I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped back onto the Seattle sidewalk, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete freedom from other people's expectations. For 3 years, I'd played the role of the struggling artist, letting my family believe whatever they wanted to believe about my life. I'd told myself it was easier, that it avoided complications, that it didn't matter what they thought as long as I knew the truth. But it did matter. Their dismissal had hurt. Their condescension had worn me down. Their assumption that I was less than them, that I needed their guidance and pity, had slowly poisoned every family interaction. Now it was over. The mask was off, the performance was finished, and I could finally be exactly who I was without apology or explanation. My phone buzzed with a text message, then another, then a flood of them. Amanda. Jessica, please call me. Amanda. I'm so sorry. Amanda. Don't do this, please. Amanda. I'll do anything to make this right. Mom. Amanda called crying. What happened at the bank? Dad. Your sister says you're rich? Is this some kind of joke? I deleted the messages without responding and turned off my phone. They could wait. For years, I'd been available whenever they needed me, for emotional support, for help, for someone to lecture about life choices. Now they could experience what it felt like to be ignored. Walking toward my old Honda, which I kept because it was reliable and paid for, not because I couldn't afford better, I felt the afternoon sun on my face and smiled. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of transferring my wealth to a bank that understood the difference between net worth and human worth. I'd find new financial advisors who saw clients as people rather than balance sheets. And Amanda? Amanda would have to live with the knowledge that she'd destroyed her relationship with her sister, not because of money or success or failure, but because she'd chosen cruelty over kindness when she thought no one important was watching. The funny thing about character is that it's revealed not by how you treat people who can help you, but by how you treat people who can't. Amanda had failed that test spectacularly, and no amount of apologies or tears could change what it revealed about who she really was. As I drove away from First National Bank for the last time, I realized that the $3.5 billion wasn't the real treasure I'd gained today. The real treasure was my freedom from caring what people like Amanda thought about me. And that, unlike money, was truly priceless.